as we age, particularly beyond the age of 65. One of the most significant physiological challenges we face is a condition known as sarcopenia, the progressive loss of skeletal muscle mass and strength. While it's easy to view this as a passive or inevitable part of aging, the truth is far more empowering. Our sarcopenia is heavily influenced by lifestyle choices, particularly nutrition, movement, and metabolic health. Muscle is not just tissue that enables physical movement. It's an endocrine organ. It communicates with your brain, immune system, and metabolism through molecular signals. When you start to lose muscle, especially in the legs, you're not just experiencing weakness. You're undergoing a systemic decline that can affect balance, cognitive function, and overall lifespan. One of the primary reasons muscle loss in the legs is so dangerous is because leg strength, one of the most accurate predictors of longevity and quality of life in older adults. It's not simply about walking or climbing stairs. Leg muscles, like the quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, and calves, are the largest and most powerful muscles in the body. They serve as metabolic engines, burning glucose, improving insulin sensitivity, and regulating hormone levels. As these muscles atrophy, the body's entire physiological network is strained. Poor leg strength increases the risk of falls, fractures, and immobility, leading causes of hospitalizations and long-term dependency among seniors. From a neurological perspective, the use and maintenance of leg muscles is intimately tied to brain function and neuroplasticity. Each time you perform a movement, whether it's standing up from a chair or walking across the room, your brain engages neural circuits that reinforce proprioception, coordination, and cognitive engagement. As leg strength diminishes, so too does stimulation of these neural pathways, contributing to cognitive decline and even depression in older adults. In this sense, fast muscle health is brain health. The loss of muscle isn't just a product of not exercising, it's a product of chronic inflammation, poor nutrient signaling, and hormonal imbalance. As you age, your levels of anabolic hormones like testosterone, growth hormone, and IGF-1 decline. These hormones are critical for protein synthesis, muscle repair, and regeneration. Without them, your muscles become less responsive to exercise stimuli. Moreover, aging brings about a condition called anabolic resistance, where your muscles don't absorb or utilize amino acids as effectively. What that means is that older adults need more targeted nutrition, not less. Now, this brings us to an often overlooked contributor to muscle degradation, the role of certain dietary choices, particularly those involving sugar-dense fruits. Many people over 65 believe they're eating healthfully by consuming large amounts of fruit, but some of these choices may be counterproductive. Fruits high in fructose, such as grapes, bananas, mangoes, and dried fruits, can contribute to metabolic disturbances that accelerate muscle loss. Excessive fructose intake increases fat accumulation in muscle tissue, known as intramuscular fat, which impairs glucose uptake and disrupts insulin signaling. This is a subtle but damaging process that leads to a chronic, low-grade inflammation drive. A key driver of sarcopenia, the combination of declining hormones, anabolic resistance, and poor dietary patterns creates a perfect storm for leg muscle breakdown. And once your legs lose their strength, your independence, cognitive function, and mobility are all compromised. But this outcome is not inevitable. Through proper nutrition, by eliminating sugar, spiking low-fiber fruits, and replacing them with nutrient-dense, low-glycemic options, you can interrupt this process. Combine that with resistance training and adequate protein intake, and you create the ideal environment for muscle preservation, even regeneration. Nutrition is one of the most powerful tools we have to protect muscle mass and strength as we age. After the age of 65, the body becomes more sensitive to both the benefits and the consequences of dietary choices. While many people focus on reducing calories or avoiding fats, what often goes unnoticed is how specific foods influence muscle preservation, especially in the lower body where age-related muscle decline tends to begin. It is a scientific fact that food is not just fuel, it is information that tells our cells how to function, how to grow, and how to repair. This is especially important when it comes to skeletal muscle, which is highly responsive to nutrient signals. As we age, our metabolism slows and anabolic resistance becomes more prominent. Anabolic resistance refers to the reduced ability of older muscles to synthesize new proteins, even in the presence of adequate amino acids. This means that for someone over 65, the body doesn't respond as effectively to protein intake or exercise as it once did. So, what amplifies this resistance and accelerates muscle breakdown? One of the most overlooked culprits is the regular consumption of high sugar, nutrient-poor fruits. These are often seen as healthy simply because they're fruits, but they can actually do more harm than good in this age group if not chosen carefully. Certain fruits like bananas, grapes, pineapples, mangoes, and dried fruits are extremely high in fructose and glucose, especially when consumed in large quantities or in processed forms like fruit juice. Fructose is metabolized primarily in the liver and has been shown to increase triglycerides, promote fat accumulation in the liver and muscles, and contribute to insulin resistance, all of which directly affect the body's ability to maintain lean mass. When muscle tissue becomes insulin resistant, it can no longer take up glucose efficiently, reducing the energy available for muscle contraction and repair. Over time, this weakens the muscle fibers and decreases overall muscle volume and function, particularly in the legs where the energy demand is highest during daily activities. Moreover, excess sugar in the bloodstream leads to chronic inflammation. This systemic inflammation, often referred to as inflammaging, is strongly associated with the degradation of muscle tissue. Inflammatory cytokines interfere with the signaling pathways that normally promote muscle repair and regeneration. They also stimulate the breakdown of muscle protein, tipping the balance toward catabolism. Over time, this creates a physiological environment where maintaining or building muscle becomes increasingly difficult. Even if someone is exercising regularly, the nutritional quality of the fruit you consume matters even more because not all fruits are created equal. Some fruits have a high glycemic index and little fiber, meaning they spike blood sugar rapidly and provide very little in the way of long-term satiety or metabolic benefit. Others, like berries, kiwis, and apples, especially with the skin on, are rich in polyphenols, antioxidants, and fiber, which help stabilize blood sugar, support gut health, and reduce inflammation, all critical for muscle preservation. The goal should never be to avoid fruit altogether, but to make intelligent, targeted choices that support the physiological changes occurring with age. What this means for those over 65 is simple but profound. Sorry, you cannot afford to eat without intention, as every bite has the potential to either support or sabotage your muscular system. Nutrition can either reinforce anabolic pathways, those that build muscle and reduce inflammation, or it can promote catabolic processes that break tissue down. And since your leg muscles are some of the most metabolically active tissues in your body, they are among the first to suffer when nutrition is poor. By cutting out high fructose, low fiber fruits and replacing them with nutrient-dense options, you're not just changing your diet, you're changing your biology. You're shifting your internal environment to favor strength, mobility, and independence. You're reducing the hidden inflammation that eats away at your muscle fibers. And most importantly, you're making a statement to your body that you intend to keep moving forward, not just through space, but through life itself, with resilience and vitality. Fructose is a natural sugar found in many fruits, but not all fruits are metabolized the same way, especially in individuals over the age of 65. As the body ages, it becomes more sensitive to the metabolic effects of sugar, especially fructose, which is processed differently than other forms of sugar like glucose. Unlike glucose, which is absorbed by multiple tissues throughout the body and used for immediate energy, fructose is metabolized almost exclusively in the liver. When consumed in large amounts, this places an added burden on the liver and contributes to a cascade of metabolic disturbances that directly and indirectly impair muscle function, particularly in the legs, where large muscle groups require high metabolic efficiency. Fruits that are particularly high in fructose, such as grapes, mangoes, watermelons, and dried fruits like raisins and dates, might seem healthy at first glance due to their natural origin. However, in older adults, the body's ability to handle and utilize sugar becomes compromised. This is partly due to reduced insulin sensitivity, which means that cells, including muscle cells, do not respond as effectively to insulin, the hormone responsible for transporting sugar out of the bloodstream and into the cells where it can be used for energy or stored. When insulin sensitivity declines, blood sugar levels remain elevated for longer periods after eating, and the excess sugar can be stored as fat or lead to systemic inflammation, both of which are detrimental to muscle strength and health. One of the most overlooked effects of excessive fructose intake is its contribution to intramuscular fat accumulation, a condition where fat infiltrates muscle fibers. This reduces the muscle's ability to contract efficiently and can lead to weakness, particularly in the legs. This type of fat isn't just an energy storage issue, it disrupts mitochondrial function within muscle cells. Mitochondria are the powerhouses of cells responsible for producing the energy required for movement, muscle repair, and overall vitality. When these cellular structures become impaired, not only does energy output decrease, but muscle cells also become more prone to damage and slower to recover. This can make even mild exercise or daily activities feel exhausting, discouraging movement and accelerating further muscle atrophy. Another critical factor is the role fructose plays in creating low-grade chronic inflammation. High fructose diets have been shown to increase levels of inflammatory markers in the bloodstream, including C-reactive protein, CRP, interleukin-6, IL-6, and tumor necrosis factor alpha, TNF-alpha. These inflammatory compounds interfere with the natural anabolic processes that are essential for maintaining and repairing muscle tissue. They act on signaling pathways that promote muscle protein breakdown and inhibit muscle protein synthesis. Over time, this leads to a gradual yet relentless decline in muscle mass, a process that becomes more apparent in the lower body due to the size and function of the leg muscles. It's also important to recognize that fruits high in fructose often have AR's high glycemic index, which means they rapidly spike blood sugar. These rapid spikes are followed by insulin surges, which eventually contribute to insulin resistance. In older adults, this pattern can also increase the risk of developing type 2 diabetes, which itself is strongly associated with muscle weakness, fatigue, and impaired neuromuscular function. Once muscle function begins to deteriorate due to poor metabolic control, individuals are less likely to engage in physical activity, creating a dangerous cycle of inactivity, further muscle loss, and even cognitive decline. All of these processes, fat accumulation in muscle tissue, mitochondrial dysfunction, chronic inflammation, and insulin resistance, create a hostile environment for muscle preservation. The legs, due to their size and energy demands, are among the first to be affected. Strength begins to decline, mobility is reduced, and with it, independence and confidence. This is why older adults must be especially selective about the types of fruits they consume. It's not that all fruit is harmful. It's that certain fruits, when eaten frequently and in large portions, send the wrong metabolic signals to an aging body. By limiting or avoiding high fructose fruits and instead choosing options that are rich in fiber, antioxidants, and lower in sugar, such as berries, green apples, and citrus fruits, you can protect muscle function and overall metabolic health. These fruits support mitochondrial function, reduce inflammation, and help stabilize blood sugar, all of which are critical for preserving leg strength and mobility. Making smart choices isn't about restriction, it's about precision. And with the right precision, you can continue to live with strength, clarity, and purpose at any age. The connection between the gut, brain, and muscles, often referred to as the gut-brain-muscle axis, is an emerging area of scientific research that holds profound implications for aging individuals, particularly those over 65. This triad of systems communicates constantly through a network of chemical messengers, neural pathways, and hormonal signals. What we eat not only affects our digestive system, but also has a ripple effect that influences how our brain functions and how our muscles perform. In older adults, disruptions in this axis can significantly contribute to loss of leg strength, mobility issues, and even cognitive decline. The gut microbiome, which consists of trillions of bacteria, plays a central role in this axis. It helps regulate digestion, immune function, hormone production, and even neurotransmitter synthesis. As we age, the diversity and balance of gut bacteria naturally begin to shift, often in response to diet, medications, and reduced physical activity. A less diverse or imbalanced gut microbiome is associated with increased inflammation, weaker immune responses, and reduced nutrient absorption, all of which are detrimental to muscle maintenance. This is especially important in the legs, where muscle groups are large and require more energy, amino acids, and anti-inflammatory support to function properly. Certain dietary choices, Particularly, the excessive consumption of high fructose fruits and processed fruit products can worsen this imbalance. These types of fruits, like grapes, bananas, and dried fruits, can feed the wrong kinds of bacteria in the gut, leading to a state known as dysbiosis. When dysbiosis occurs, harmful bacteria outnumber beneficial strains, producing toxins and inflammatory compounds that leak into the bloodstream through a compromised gut lining, a phenomenon often called leaky gut. Once these inflammatory molecules circulate, they reach the muscles and the brain, activating immune responses that break down muscle fibers and impair neuromuscular coordination. Additionally, the gut produces several short-chain fatty acids, SCFAs, like butyrate, which play a protective role in muscle metabolism and brain health. These SCFAs are the byproducts of dietary fiber fermentation and are crucial for regulating inflammation, insulin sensitivity, and energy production. However, when the diet is dominated by low-fiber, high-sugar fruits, the production of these beneficial compounds is significantly reduced. As a result, the body becomes more prone to inflammation and metabolic disorders, which in turn compromise the strength and endurance of the legs and overall muscle performance. The brain, another key player in this axis, relies heavily on nutrients synthesized or regulated by the gut microbiome. Neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which are crucial for motivation, movement, and focus, are significantly influenced by gut health. When poor dietary choices negatively affect gut function, the production and balance of these neurotransmitters are disrupted, leading to symptoms like fatigue, low motivation, and even depression, all of which reduce the likelihood of engaging in regular physical activity, further weakening the leg muscles. Moreover, the communication between the brain and muscles via the central and peripheral nervous systems is only as effective as the metabolic environment allows. Inflammation caused by poor gut health can damage the neurons responsible for sending signals to muscle tissue. This impairs coordination, reaction time, and strength output. In older adults, this translates to slower walking speed, poor balance, and an increased risk of falls. These aren't just physical impairments, they are neurological consequences of dietary and gut-related dysfunctions. It becomes clear that maintaining leg strength and muscular function isn't just about exercise or protein intake. It's about preserving the integrity of this complex gut-brain-muscle network. When you feed your gut with whole, fiber-rich, nutrient-dense foods, you not only improve digestion, but also enhance muscle energy production, reduce systemic inflammation, and support clear communication between your brain and your body. Avoiding high-sugar, low-fiber fruits helps prevent harmful bacterial overgrowth and supports the beneficial microbes that keep this axis running smoothly. For those over 65, understanding this connection is a game changer. It empowers you to view every food choice not just as a calorie or a sugar count, but as a biological signal that travels through your entire system. The foods you choose can either nurture the gut-brain-muscle connection or disrupt it. And by protecting this axis, especially through smart fruit choices, you safeguard your strength, mobility, and independence well into the later years of life. Hormonal balance plays a vital role in maintaining muscle strength, particularly in the lower body, where large muscle groups like the quadriceps, hamstrings, and glutes are responsible for mobility, balance, and posture. As individuals age, there is a natural decline in the production of anabolic hormones, testosterone growth hormone, insulin, like growth factor 1, IGF-1, and dehydroepiandrosterone, DHEA. These hormones are essential for muscle protein synthesis, tissue repair, and the stimulation of satellite cells, which are involved in muscle regeneration. In people over 65, this hormonal decline creates a biological environment where muscle maintenance becomes much more difficult, and external factors like diet can either help compensate for this drop or worsen it significantly. The consumption of certain high-sugar fruits that are rich in fructose can exacerbate hormonal imbalances. Fructose has been shown in numerous studies to increase the conversion of glucose into fat in the liver through a process called de novo lipogenesis. This contributes to fatty liver disease, metabolic syndrome, and insulin resistance, all of which are known to disrupt endocrine function. Insulin resistance, in particular, is not just a metabolic issue, it directly interferes with the anabolic signaling pathways that regulate muscle growth and preservation. When insulin no longer functions properly, the body struggles to shuttle amino acids into muscle cells, reducing the effectiveness of protein intake and muscle regeneration efforts. This becomes a serious issue in the legs, where muscles need constant repair and stimulation to remain strong. Increased visceral fat and insulin resistance, often worsened by high fructose diets, also contribute to higher levels of aromatase activity. Aromatase is an enzyme that converts testosterone into estrogen. In aging men and women, elevated aromatase activity can further reduce already declining testosterone levels, creating a hormonal imbalance that tips the scale toward muscle loss. Lower testosterone means lower stimulation of androgen receptors in muscle tissue, which results in less muscle protein synthesis, more fat infiltration in muscle fibers, and a weakened capacity for physical exertion. This process is subtle and cumulative, and its effects are often first noticed in the legs, where simple activities like standing from a chair, walking upstairs, or maintaining balance start to feel more difficult. Beyond testosterone, growth hormone and IGF-1 levels also play key roles in maintaining muscle strength. These hormones help activate satellite cells and enhance the repair of damaged muscle fibers. However, the excessive intake of high glycemic, fructose-rich fruits leads to spikes in blood sugar and insulin, which blunt the natural secretion of growth hormone. In older adults who already produce lower amounts of GH, this additional suppression means slower recovery from exercise, greater muscle fatigue, and increased susceptibility to injury. Moreover, IGF-1, which is regulated in part by liver function, can be negatively impacted when liver health is compromised by high fructose intake. Poor liver function leads to reduced IGF-1 synthesis, which further limits the muscle's ability to repair itself. Another lesser-known but critical hormone affected by poor dietary habits is cortisol. High sugar diets are associated with elevated cortisol levels, especially in individuals under chronic metabolic stress. Cortisol is catabolic, meaning it breaks down muscle tissue, particularly in the limbs, and promotes fat storage. When cortisol remains elevated due to poor blood sugar regulation from high fructose fruit consumption, it accelerates muscle breakdown while simultaneously decreasing the body's ability to recover and adapt to physical activity. This catabolic state becomes particularly harmful to leg strength because it undermines both the structure and function of the largest muscle groups in the body. Therefore, maintaining hormonal balance in aging individuals is not only about replacement therapies or medications. It starts with managing what goes on your plate. Reducing or eliminating high fructose fruits helps stabilize insulin levels, support liver health, and prevent the metabolic imbalances that interfere with hormone function. More importantly, making informed nutritional choices gives the body a better chance to retain the hormonal signaling it needs to preserve muscle integrity. When leg strength begins to fade, the underlying cause is often not just age or inactivity, but a hormone-driven breakdown of the muscular system, intensified by poor dietary patterns. By understanding how hormones interact with food and how food influences muscle, older adults can take control of their physical trajectory. It's not about avoiding all fruit. It's about knowing which fruits support your endocrine health and which silently work against it. Smart dietary choices, when combined with movement and recovery, can reinforce the hormonal environment needed to stay strong, mobile, and resilient well into later life. Muscle preservation is not only a matter of movement and resistance training, but also deeply tied to the quality of one's blood circulation, especially in the lower body. As we age, the efficiency of the cardiovascular system begins to decline, arteries stiffen, endothelial function decreases, and microcirculation within muscle tissues becomes compromised. These changes have a direct effect on the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to working muscles, particularly in the legs, which require more vascular support due to their size and role in locomotion. What many people overlook is how dietary choices, specifically the intake of high sugar fruits, can negatively influence vascular health and thereby contribute to progressive leg weakness. High sugar fruits like grapes, pineapples, bananas, and fruit juices contain significant amounts of glucose and fructose. These sugars, when consumed in excess, can lead to spikes in blood glucose and insulin, which over time damage the inner lining of blood vessels, also known as the endothelium. The endothelium plays a critical role in regulating blood pressure, vascular tone, and nutrient exchange. In older adults, the endothelium is already more vulnerable to oxidative stress and inflammation. Introducing excess sugar from high Fructose fruits further aggravates this vulnerability, leading to endothelial dysfunction, which restricts the flow of oxygen and essential nutrients to muscle tissues. Compromised blood flow means that the muscles of the legs do not receive the necessary substrates, such as oxygen, amino acids, and glucose, in an efficient and timely manner during movement or recovery. This can result in a sensation of fatigue, cramping, or heaviness in the legs, even during routine activities. Over time, the body interprets these energy deficits as a signal to reduce physical activity, which accelerates muscle atrophy through disuse. Furthermore, impaired circulation also slows the removal of metabolic waste products like lactic acid, increasing the risk of soreness, stiffness, and injury in aging muscle tissue. Another issue linked to poor circulation caused by sugar-induced vascular dysfunction is reduced mitochondrial efficiency. Mitochondria, the energy-producing centers within cells, rely on a steady supply of oxygen and nutrients to function optimally. When circulation is impaired, mitochondria in leg muscles can't generate ATP, the molecule that fuels muscle contraction, at a sufficient rate. This results in slower muscle response times, decreased endurance, and weaker contractions. In practical terms, this translates to difficulty standing for long periods, reduced walking speed, and higher risk of falls, all of which significantly impact quality of life in older adults. Additionally, excess sugar promotes the formation of advanced glycation end products, AGEs, which are harmful compounds that form when sugar molecules bind to proteins or lipids. AGEs accumulate in tissues, including blood vessels and muscles, making them stiffer and less functional. In blood vessels, this stiffening reduces elasticity, making it harder for the circulatory system to respond to changes in blood flow demand, such as during exercise or physical exertion. In muscle fibers, AGEs disrupt the structural proteins responsible for contraction and repair, leading to more fragile, fatigue-prone muscle tissues. Poor circulation also means a reduced ability to distribute anti-inflammatory compounds and immune cells to muscle tissues when repair is needed. This diminishes the muscle's ability to recover from minor strains or microtears, which are a normal part of physical activity. Over time, the cumulative effect of inadequate repair mechanisms results in a net loss of muscle mass, especially in the legs where mechanical demands are highest. This scenario creates a vicious cycle. Poor circulation leads to weak muscles reduce activity, and reduced activity further weakens circulation. One of the most powerful ways to break this cycle is through strategic dietary choices. Reducing high fructose fruits from the diet can help improve blood sugar regulation, decrease systemic inflammation, and support endothelial health. In contrast, incorporating fruits that are high in antioxidants, polyphenols, and fiber, such as blueberries, pomegranates, and citrus, can actually enhance vascular function by reducing oxidative stress and improving nitric oxide production, which promotes vasodilation and better blood flow. These types of fruits support not only the circulatory system, but also the muscle tissue itself by ensuring optimal nutrient delivery and waste removal. For individuals over 65, optimizing blood flow to the legs is not just about maintaining strength, it's about preserving independence, mobility, and the confidence to move without fear. Every food decision has a direct impact on circulation and, by extension, on muscle function. Understanding this link empowers you to take daily steps toward a stronger, more capable body by choosing foods that protect, rather than hinder, the systems that sustain life and movement.